On a gloomy autumn day, heavy clouds cloaked the vast national cemetery like a mournful shroud. A cold, damp wind swept across rows of neatly planted trees, each one stripped of its summer vibrance, and now bearing only the melancholy hues of fall. In the center of this solemn tableau stood a casket, dignified and still, draped in the national flag that fluttered gently in the breeze. Along the grave-lined avenues, countless flags were arranged in perfect rows, their subtle rustling punctuating the quiet sorrow of the gathered mourners. Corporal Alex Bennett, once known as Sergeant Daniel Reeves, had earned his place in the nation's proud history. His dedication on the battlefield and his unwavering service alongside his loyal canine companion had become legendary. Today, as the nation honored his final journey, his presence was felt in every whispered memory and every tear shed in silent tribute. Among those in attendance were family members, comrades, and strangers whose hearts beat in unison with the sorrow of the day. At the forefront of the assembly, Charlie, the devoted German Shepherd, who had once been known as Max, stood, motionless near the casket. His dark, soulful eyes, filled with a deep and ineffable grief, remained fixed on the resting place of the man he had served so loyally. It was as if Charlie, in his own unspoken language, mourned not only the loss of his master, but also the severing of a sacred bond that transcended the physical realm. As the mourners shuffled quietly, a single unifying narrative flowed throughout the cemetery, a narrative of duty, honor, and the timeless connection between a soldier and his canine partner. The autumn chill amplified every sound. The soft murmur of hushed conversations, the rustling of the flags, and the distant measured steps of those who had marched in remembrance of a man whose life had been defined by service and sacrifice. Hush descended over the gathered crowd as the commanding officer signaled the beginning of the 21-gun salute, a tradition steeped in reverence and honor. The air vibrated with the resounding booms of the artillery, each explosion echoing the finality of Alex's earthly journey. For many, the salute was a powerful reminder of the sacrifice made by a patriot. For Charlie, however, it stirred something far deeper, an instinctive, almost preternatural grief that pulsed visibly through his body. With each thunderous report, Charlie's ears perked, and his tail remained stiff and unmoving. The dog's eyes, usually alight with a spark of playful energy, now shimmered with unshed tears. It was as if the sound of the salute had transported him to a place where memories of Alex's gentle touch, the soft cadence of his voice, and the reassuring sound of his whistle were still alive. The salute not only commemorated a hero, but also reawakened the deep bond that had existed between soldier and canine, a bond that could not be severed by death. Veteran Mike Harris, a longtime friend and comrade of Alex, observed Charlie's reaction with a heavy heart. Once known as Corporal Sam Peterson, Mike had shared countless moments of camaraderie with Alex on the battlefield. Today, as he looked upon the steadfast canine, Mike recognized the silent language of loyalty and loss, a language that spoke of late, night vigils, shared hardships, and the unspoken promise of everlasting companionship. The ceremony's pace slowed as the echoes of the salute faded into the crisp air. Every soul present felt the weight of the moment. Every flag, every tear, every silent prayer became a testament to the sacrifice of a hero and the unyielding loyalty of a faithful friend. In the wake of the salute, the atmosphere grew almost tangible with sorrow. As the procession continued, murmurs of admiration and grief rippled through the crowd. It was then that an extraordinary moment unfolded, one that would etch itself into the hearts of every mourner. Charlie, who had been lingering near the foot of the casket, suddenly stirred with an intensity that startled even the most composed onlookers. In one swift, fluid motion, the German Shepherd bounded forward, leaping onto the polished wood of the casket. His powerful body landed with a soft thud, and he settled himself firmly upon it, as if declaring his refusal to leave the side of his beloved master. A ripple of uneasy murmurs and hushed exclamations coursed through the crowd. Eyes widened, and whispers filled the air as the faithful companion's action defied all conventional expectations of decorum. Yet, Even in this bold display, there was an undeniable grace, a raw, unfiltered expression of grief that transcended the boundaries of normal behavior. Charlie's posture was that of a sentinel, guarding not only the physical vessel that held Alex's remains, but also the intangible spirit of loyalty and love that had defined their relationship. His presence on the casket was both a tribute and a protest, a poignant reminder that some bonds are too deep to be confined by death. Veteran Mike Harris stepped forward, his face etched with both empathy and concern. He had witnessed many acts of valor over the years, but none so raw and inexplicable as this. Gently, he approached Charlie, speaking softly and reverently in an effort to soothe the loyal creature's troubled heart. However, Charlie remained unmoved, fixated on the casket as though it were a portal to the past, to the days when his master's hand still stroked his fur, and when the whistle's call signaled moments of shared triumph and solace. In the hushed moments that followed, a strange energy seemed to ripple through the air. The boundary between the living and the departed thinned, and for a brief, almost imperceptible moment, it felt as if Alex's presence lingered among the mourners. The whispers of the wind carried the faintest echo of a familiar whistle, a sound that had always been Alex's signature call to Charlie. The dog's eyes widened, and his body shivered with an intensity that transcended mere grief. It was as if he had heard his master's voice from beyond the veil, a spectral reminder that the bond they shared was eternal. As the ceremony slowly resumed its somber progression, a moment of technological intrusion brought a startling new layer of mystery to the day. In a quiet corner of the cemetery, far from the prying eyes of the main gathering, Sophie Bennett, a once vibrant young woman now cloaked in grief, felt the sudden vibration of her cell phone. Clutched tightly in her hand, the device buzzed insistently, as if determined to deliver a message that had been long held in abeyance. Sophie, whose heart had been aching since the news of her father's passing, hesitated for a heartbeat before answering. The screen displayed a name that sent an electric jolt through her soul. Dad. With trembling fingers, she pressed play on a voicemail that had been recorded before the fateful day. The voice that emerged from the speaker was unmistakably her father's, a rich, comforting timbre that had soothed her throughout her childhood. "Hello, my darling Sophie," the message began, laden with the warmth of 1,000 shared memories. "If you're hearing this, then I've taken my final march. I want you to know that even though I may be gone from this earth, I will always be with you. And Charlie, my faithful friend, he will be your guide through the darkness. Trust in him, for in his eyes you will see my love, and in his loyalty, my promise that I am never truly gone." The message paused for a moment, as though allowing the weight of the words to sink into the listener's heart. Sophie's eyes welled with tears, and she clutched the phone close, her entire being trembling with a mix of sorrow and unexpected comfort. The voicemail was not just a farewell, it was a beacon of hope, a reassurance that her father had foreseen the extraordinary events of the day and had prepared a final gift for her in the form of his enduring presence. Even as Sophie listened, Charlie remained by the casket, a silent guardian in the twilight of loss. The mysterious voicemail and the spectral echo of the whistle had merged into a singular, profound experience, hinting at the possibility that the separation between life and death was not as absolute as it seemed. Alex's words resonated with an otherworldly assurance, binding the hearts of those left behind to a promise of eternal love and guidance. In the moments that followed the voicemail, the atmosphere of the cemetery shifted subtly yet perceptibly. The autumn wind, which had been cold and indifferent, now carried a hint of a familiar melody, a soft, deliberate whistle that had always been synonymous with Alex's presence. Charlie's ears pricked up, his eyes locking onto a point in the distance where the sound seemed to originate. It was a whistle that could only belong to Alex, a tone so distinct and personal that it immediately bridged the gap between memory and reality. As if compelled by an invisible force, Charlie stood alert, his gaze fixed in unwavering determination. The canine's reaction was not one of mere instinct, but of deep emotional resonance, a yearning to reconnect with the soul he had served. so faithfully. In that moment, the boundaries of the living and the spiritual blurred, leaving only the pure essence of a bond that defied even death. Veteran Mike Harris, who had been watching these inexplicable occurrences with a mixture of wonder and sorrow, understood the significance of the sound. He recalled countless instances where Alex's whistle had signaled hope amidst chaos, guiding his faithful companion through trials and triumphs. Now, as that very whistle echoed softly across the cemetery, it became a tangible reminder that Alex's spirit was still present, gently watching over those he had left behind. The congregation, though initially taken aback by the surreal unfolding of events, began to feel a collective solace in the uncanny familiarity of the sound. It was as if Alex, through his whispered farewell and his signature call, was saying goodbye, not with a finality, but with a promise that love, loyalty, and the bonds forged in hardship would forever transcend the limitations of mortality. As twilight slowly descended upon the cemetery, the day's sorrow began to meld with a quiet determination among those who had gathered. Sophie Bennett, though overwhelmed by grief, found a newfound strength in the mysterious events that had unfolded. The voice of her father in the voicemail, coupled with the spectral reminder of his whistle and Charlie's unwavering devotion, ignited within her a desire to honor his memory in the most meaningful way possible. No longer was the day solely about mourning a fallen hero. Instead, it marked the beginning of a journey toward healing and purpose. In a heartfelt decision born of both grief and gratitude, Sophie resolved to transform her pain into action, with Charlie by her side, a living testament to her father's legacy. She embarked on a mission to train and work with canine service dogs, ensuring that the compassionate spirit of her father would continue to touch lives long after he was gone. Over the ensuing weeks, Sophie dedicated herself to learning the intricacies of canine training and rehabilitation. Guided by the quiet wisdom of veteran Mike Harris, who had become not only a friend but a mentor in this transformative process, she discovered that the legacy of a hero was not solely measured in medals and salutes. It was measured in every act of kindness, every saved life, and every moment when love triumphed over despair. Charlie, too, began to exhibit a remarkable change. Once overwhelmed by sorrow at the loss of his master, he gradually transformed his grief into a resolute focus on protecting and guiding those in need. In training sessions under the crisp autumn skies, the German Shepherd would tilt his head as if listening for a distant call, a call that, in Sophie's heart, was unmistakably her father's. The silent connection between Sophie and Charlie deepened with each passing day, a bond forged in shared loss and renewed hope. The transformation was not without its challenges. There were days when the memories of Alex would surge unexpectedly, and the weight of his absence would seem almost unbearable. On such days, Sophie would retreat to a quiet corner of the training grounds, clutching Charlie close as he nuzzled her hand in a gesture of silent reassurance. Together, they would recall the tender moments of the past, the comforting cadence of Alex's voice, the warmth of his laughter, and the reassuring sound of his whistle echoing softly in the twilight. In these moments, the cemetery, with its rows of fluttering flags and quiet gravestones, transformed from a place of final farewells into a sacred ground of remembrance and renewal. The very earth seemed to absorb the memories of bravery and sacrifice, nurturing them into seeds of hope that would blossom in the hearts of those left behind. Months passed, and the once bleak horizon of grief began to give way to the tender hues of a new dawn. Sophie and Charlie had established a modest training center dedicated to the rehabilitation and training of canine service dogs. In this place, the legacy of Corporal Alex Bennett lived on, not just in the rituals of remembrance, but in the daily acts of compassion and resilience that transformed lives. Under the soft glow of sunrise, Sophie would often reflect on the inexplicable events of that fateful autumn day. The memory of the 21-gun salute, the thunderous echoes that had stirred Charlie's soul, remained a vivid reminder of the day when the veil between the living and the departed had grown thin. She remembered the moment when Charlie had leaped onto the casket, a defiant yet deeply poignant gesture that had left the assembled mourners in a state of awed silence. It was in that moment that she had realized that her father's love was not confined to memory alone. It was woven into the very fabric of existence, bridging past and present, life and death. Veteran Mike Harris, now a frequent visitor and a cherished friend, would often recount stories of his time with Alex. He spoke of a man who had been larger than life, a soldier of honor, a mentor, and above all, a loving father. His anecdotes were laced with humor and heartache, painting a picture of a hero whose legacy was defined by his courage and his profound empathy. Mike's gentle reminders of Alex's favorite whistle, the same sound that had resonated so powerfully at the funeral, became a symbolic thread that connected every part of their shared history. In the training center, the transformation of grief into hope was visible in every detail. The once forlorn grounds had been revitalized with vibrant murals depicting heroic deeds and quiet acts of kindness. Young cadets, inspired by the story of Corporal Alex Bennett and the extraordinary loyalty of his canine companion, dedicated themselves wholeheartedly to the rigorous training of service dogs. They learned that the bond between a handler and his canine partner was not just a tool for duty, it was a relationship built on trust, sacrifice, and above all, love. Sophie, having overcome the early torrents of sorrow, found a deep sense of fulfillment in guiding the next generation of heroes. Each training session was imbued with the spirit of her father's legacy, and every time a dog responded to a whistle that bore the unmistakable signature of Alex's past, the air would fill with an almost imperceptible reverence, as if the man himself had lent his guiding hand to the cause. Charlie, ever the stalwart guardian, continued to serve as both symbol and mentor. His eyes, though clouded with memories of loss, shone brightly with determination. In his silent vigil, he taught all who came to the center that the bonds of loyalty and love could weather even the fiercest storms. Every pat on his head, every gentle caress, was a testament to a promise that transcended the boundaries of life and death, a promise that the spirit of a true hero would never truly fade away. As years passed, the training center flourished, and the legacy of Corporal Alex Bennett became a beacon for all those who sought solace and strength in the face of adversity. Sophie and Charlie, side by side, watched as new lives were touched by the power of unconditional love and unwavering loyalty. The echoes of that autumn day, with its heavy clouds, solemn salutes, and mysterious signs, resonated far beyond the confines of the cemetery. In quiet moments, when the sun dipped low and the sky was painted with the soft colors of twilight, Sophie would often pause to listen for the familiar sound of a whistle. It was in these moments that she felt her father's presence most acutely, an unseen guardian watching over the legacy he had left behind. And in the gentle companionship of Charlie, she found the courage to believe that even in the face of profound loss, life could be transformed into a journey of hope and healing. The cemetery remained a sacred ground, its rows of flags and silent gravestones a constant reminder of those who had given everything for their country. But for Sophie, the cemetery was no longer a place of endless mourning. It was a sanctuary of memory, a testament to the enduring bonds of loyalty, and the living proof that love could outlast even the final farewell. In the soft murmur of the wind and the gentle rustling of the flags, the spirit of Corporal Alex Bennett lived on. His legacy, interwoven with the devotion of a loyal canine and the determination of a grieving daughter, became an everlasting symbol of the unbreakable bonds between humans and animals. The story of Alex, Charlie, and Sophie was not merely one of loss and sorrow, but of renewal and promise, a reminder that true love endures, transcending the limitations of mortal existence. On a crisp winter morning, as new snow gently blanketed the training center grounds, Sophie and Charlie stood together before a group of eager young recruits. The atmosphere was one of quiet determination and hope. Sophie's voice, steady and full of purpose, recounted the tale of Corporal Alex Bennett, a tale of valor, sacrifice, and the mysterious forces that had brought healing from grief. As you begin your journey here, Sophie said, addressing the attentive group. "Remember that every challenge you face is an opportunity to honor those who came before us." Alex believed in the power of loyalty, in the strength that comes from true companionship. Today, as you learn to guide these incredible animals, you are not just training service dogs, you are continuing a legacy of love that will outlast us all. Charlie, now a symbol of resilience and the living bridge to a past that still resonated in every heartbeat, stood loyally by her side. His eyes, reflecting a lifetime of memories and the quiet power of unspoken understanding, were a constant reminder that while the physical world may change, the bonds of love and loyalty are eternal. In every heartfelt goodbye, in every 21-gun salute, and in every act of courage at the training center, the spirit of Alex Bennett remained a silent guardian whose legacy continued to shine like a beacon of hope in the darkest of times. And as Sophie and Charlie moved forward together, they carried with them the indelible reminder that while physical partings may cause tears, the bonds forged in the crucible of love and loyalty are indeed unbreakable. The cemetery, with its quiet rows and solemn vigil, faded into the backdrop of a life renewed. The story of Corporal Alex Bennett, his devoted companion Charlie, and his beloved daughter Sophie had woven itself into the tapestry of national memory, a story of valor, sacrifice, and the unyielding power of love. And as the seasons turned, bringing with them both endings and new beginnings, the echo of a familiar whistle continued to call out a reminder that every farewell is but a prelude to an everlasting bond.